Hey, friends! Welcome to Spirit Club, a podcast and community that is all about doing the inner work to live an aligned and, dare I say, happy life. I'm your host, spiritual guide, and intuitive, Angel Kelly, and I'm here to share my teachings along with messages passed on to me from higher consciousness. I've also got incredible guests in store to help you go down all those spiritual rabbit holes. So let's go! Welcome to the club! Yay! Hello, Spirit Club. Thanks for tuning in again and for coming to meet another one of my friends and a very special guest. Today we have Annamarie Green. She is a licensed therapist and an intuitive. And so her special sauce is blending the two of these to really make a difference in mental health. So I think this applies to pretty much everyone. So really excited for you all to meet Annamarie and just get to know her. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I
So great
saw
to be here.
recently, you've been talking about how you're the Meredith Grey of, what did you say? Meredith Grey of
Like
intuitive.
intuitive healers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I was like,
Yes,
oh my gosh, I love this. I love
yes.
it.
Yeah, and I think somebody said that about me and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's such a great personification of me and what I do because I mean, first of all, I love Grey's Anatomy. I've loved it for a long time.
Yeah.
But Meredith Grey is very messy. Like in her
Mhm.
journey to become the best, like and I mean it in the most loving way, but I feel like my life has been a little bit messy
Mm,
and that has led me to discovering the things that I've discovered and creating the things I've created. And I truly like the work that I do is very deep, very intense work. And it is like I've been teaching recently and I tell my students, I was like, this is probably one of the most thorough programs you'll go through because I really walk you through each and every step of everything. So
yeah.
yeah.
I think, like you said, well, it's not that I'm calling you messy, but it's like it's
Oh yeah, no, it's okay.
embodied. Like when
Yeah,
you've experienced things, gone through them,
yeah,
overcome them, that's like really embodied. And
yeah.
that's what a lot of people are looking for when they're looking for support,
Yeah,
really.
absolutely. Yeah. And Meredith always pushes the limits. And I do feel that I've done that throughout my life where I'm like, are we sure that we couldn't just try it in a different way? And
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it. Great, great branding. And also, I
Thank
feel
you.
like Grey's Anatomy, there's like a demographic of us who like
Mhm. Love
got
it.
into
Yeah.
Grey, you know? And I feel like
Yes.
those are your people.
Yes, absolutely. For a very short amount of time, I was like, well, maybe I want to be a surgeon. Maybe, even though I don't like math, maybe I'll be a surgeon. Yeah, absolutely.
You are a certain kind of surgeon.
I am. I'm an energetic surgeon.
Right, that's right. Okay, well, let's play a little icebreaker,
Okay.
starting with your sun, moon, and rising.
I am a Leo sun, a Cancer moon, and a Gemini rising.
Cancer moon.
I know, and it is in my first house, so it is really rocking.
Your Cancer moon in your first house.
Hmm.
Conjunct your right. Oh, wait.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me, okay, because I know so much about cancers, I'm going to ask more
Hmm.
about the Gemini part because I got a few Gemini risings in my life.
Hmm.
What are some parts of the Gemini rising that like show up for you?
So my love of learning,
Oh,
I love learning. I suck it in like a sponge. And then challenging the status quo, like not really conforming
hmm,
to, just because this is the box that everyone says, here's the box in which you're supposed to exist in, and here's how you do things. I feel that I'm always kind of like trying to challenge it. I would also say that I move very fast. So I have an idea, I immediately want to take action on it. I struggle with the consistency of like, okay, let's just rinse and repeat and do it until it works. I'm like, okay, this either works or it doesn't. Now we're going to pivot again. I think in at the last quarter of the year, I think I launched like 4 or 5 different things, and they were all successful in their own ways. But by the end of it, I was very, very tired.
mm,
And so I definitely, yeah, I'm a little bit ungrounded. I struggle with grounding. It takes a lot of conscious effort for me. I would like to
right.
say it's because
Fire
of
and
my
water.
Gemini.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes. Trying to think of anything else. I'm very social.
Mm,
I love people. I love groups. it's probably not, doesn't have that much to do with my Gemini rising. I'm not an astrologer, so I'm not 100% sure. But I loved dating when I was dating. I
Dating
just like, yes, I loved dating. I loved meeting new people and I loved the process of like, I
says no
loved,
one ever.
I loved it. The before the actual like real commitment relationship, that was my favorite. Is like that you're just dating. Maybe you're going on dates with different people. Like I loved it.
Mhm.
I'm engaged now, so I'm not. I date my fiance, but
Yeah.
yeah, I loved it.
Yes. And quick side because it's so fun. And people like to hear these things.
Yeah.
Annamarie came to Canada with her
Okay.
now
Okay.
fiance, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
They came
Yes.
back in June, no,
August.
August.
August. Yeah.
August, and they weren't engaged then. And where did they get engaged?
Got engaged in Banff,
Yeah.
which was so we saw Angel and then like literally like 2 days later I was engaged. It was beautiful. It was like and I loved Banff. Like I loved all of that those parts of Canada. I was like, man, if my family didn't live all in the States, we would consider moving to
Mhm.
Calgary because we
Yeah,
loved
I
it.
don't think you feel
Yeah.
that way today. We're having some pretty cold days up here,
Yeah,
so
that's right.
came at the
I
right
understand.
time. But yeah, it was funny, guys. Like they came and it was their for both of their first time to Canada, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want them to have the best time. I'm that hostess who's like, how can you love this place the most? And then I didn't know to do it because Dan proposed to you, so this will forever be a good
It
place in your heart.
always, always. I loved it. I was obsessed with the different bodies of water in Banff. I'm a
Oh,
very bodies of water girly.
hmm.
And Dan actually and I went in when we went to Moraine Lake, we went in the lake. And it was very cold, but it was very magical. It was
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh yeah, and it's like the freshest water ever, like oh,
Mm,
sparkly. Oh,
yes.
amazing. Okay. All right. Onward. Gosh, what are my questions? Oh, do you have if you have a morning routine, what is it?
Okay. So I am historically not the best at morning routines because the morning it takes forever for me to actually like get with it unless I work out first. So when it is not cold in wintertime, my favorite morning routine is to get up, work out in some capacity. Maybe it's a run, maybe it's the Peloton, and then to dance around my house with my headphones in and make my self breakfast, make Scarlett get Scarlett together, and then I shower after Scarlett leaves for school.
Mm,
As like a way of like that's when I can truly like decompress. I don't have to worry about watching the time as much. Nobody's gonna come into the shower and be like, "Mom, I can't find this." So that's usually, and then once I have my showers, when I have my tea and any other like vitamins and things like that. So it's my morning routine. It's very simple, but I need it to be simple in the morning
yeah.
time.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of
Yeah,
moms would be like, yep, yep, yep.
yeah.
I like the dancing part.
Hmm.
I feel that's very you. And I've had one other
Hmm.
guest. Who was it? It was Lambeth, who
Oh, okay, okay.
told me she likes to dance
Yeah.
in the morning, and I was like, cool. Like I can't see myself doing it, but I kind of want to, you know?
Okay. Yeah, it gets you moving, it gets you embodied. It also is how I can like set the vibe for the day is I
Mm.
turn on shuffle like my songs on a particular playlist. I'm like, okay, give me the vibe of the day just so I can like prepare but in a fun way.
Mm-hmm. And really, like, can you be in a bad vibe and dancing? I'm not sure that you can.
No. No. Even if you are sad, like if you're
Grumpy
singing and
dancing?
dancing, it'll be fine. Scarlet Grumpy Dance. She's the master of
Oh
Grumpy
yeah,
Dancing.
I
My
feel like
7-year-old. Oh yeah.
I could see that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay, this podcast we're all about doing the inner work. So if there are any teachers, mentors, coaches, authors
Oh
that
gosh.
stand out for you that have really like played a role in your own development,
Mm,
name
so
them.
many, so many.
Yeah.
So I we met in Nikki Novo's program, which was a really huge life-changing program for me. I had taken a couple of her courses before, but I would say that that program is really where I was like, oh, I'm like good. Like I have gifts in this area.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and allowed me to really like pivot into and formally add it into my work. And then I took level 1 and level 2 of medical intuitive training with Abigail White. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a really pivotal program for me too, because I think before in Nikki's program, now I had all of these like tools and practices to do it. And Abby's program really allowed me to be super confident and empowered in my work and to stop questioning, like, am I sure? Like, I don't know. And like really over giving. And so it really allowed me to step into my role, especially as a healer, instead of just being a reader. Really, I'm this healer for people. And so those I would say, the two pivotal for, as well as inner work, not just my professional work, but I grew a lot in those programs. I did a lot of the work on myself first before I, did it with other people. And yeah, those have just been really pivotal programs for me. I'm trying to think of other, I mean, there's so many people I follow and podcasts I like to listen to, yours, Gabby's, like,
Yeah.
um, I do like Mel Robbins. I think that she has just really valuable like discussions with people. And any other inner work stuff?
Well, this
Mm,
question's being pulled out of me, and that is,
yeah.
given that you're a licensed therapist,
Hmm.
do you have a therapist now, or did you, like, was there a therapist that had a strong influence on you that got you into this work?
There wasn't a therapist. I did have a therapist for a long time, who I was working with in Michigan, who was like spiritual adjacent. I would say she did a lot of visualization stuff with me,
Mm.
and exploring things on not really like a traditional lens. And she was open to spirituality stuff, so I could have conversations about the things I was learning, my belief systems, without feeling judged, therapist to therapist. um, and then who I work more with, like a life coach now,
Mhm.
just because it's been hard to find therapists who I feel fully supported by, because it is such a new way to approach mental health. And although it's what people want, it's what the collective want. Like if you look at the research, 85% of therapy seekers want somebody who can meet them on a spiritual level, and only 20% of practicing therapists feel equipped to handle that. But a lot of therapists have a lot of older views on like how you engage with the client and all these
Mhm.
different things. And I find those methods a little bit inefficient.
Mhm, mhm.
So it was hard to find someone in that realm. So I have a coach that I work with now. So
Yeah, totally. Isn't it
yes.
interesting how like coaching became that, like, this is how we're going to move around that red tape almost, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's really like what it is. And even the other therapists that I talk to and that I'm training in this work, that's one of the big questions they have, is like, what about my license? I was like, well, technically you can just add coaching to your leg of stuff, and then that's how you kind of go around
Right.
the red tape.
Right.
And it's just like, you just have to make sure that you specify those things and everything. But I was having a conversation with a, a student of mine the other day, and I was telling her she has a lot of fear about fully taking the leap and adding this into her business. And I was telling her, I was like, one of the things that's showing up for her, and probably showed up for me, was that therapy, being trapped in this box, is almost like a colonization of health and wellness. Because a lot of the things, the healings that I teach and that she's learned and what her guides are showing her, are passed along down her lineage. She's Hispanic.
Mm.
And I was like, you're meant to be a healer. Like medicine women, like healers were a very prevalent part of the societies, especially in ancient cultures and civilizations. But we're conforming it to something else. And so I was like, don't limit yourself in this way. It's almost like a way of getting trapped again, and your gifts, your magic being taken from you. And I think that's more and more how I see of it, is like sometimes in the therapy industry, there's a lot of need to control exactly how people are healing.
Mm.
And then it turns into this like, well, just keep them coming as long as you can. And it's not really
Mm.
about the efficiency of the actual healing of the person.
Mm. Sounds like Western
Yeah.
medicine.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, everything you said there just gave me some goosebumps. So, yeah, I hope that we're on the frontier of something different.
Yeah.
You
I
are
truly
on the
think we are.
frontier.
I think we are. I tell everyone, I was like, I think therapy is going to completely change in the next like 10 years.
Unreal. Yay. Okay, let's move on to a little magic making. So, first question for you is what is something, oh, and perfect, we just had a full moon. What is something that you
Yes.
are releasing or letting go right now?
Oh gosh. My need to do everything myself.
Oh,
I am I would say like professional level, expert level, a hyper independent girly, where even if someone's like, "Oh, I can do this for you," I'm like, "No, no, no, it's fine. I don't want to inconvenience you."
mm,
So I don't drive. I have epilepsy. I've had it since I was 4, and people will be like, "Oh, I can drive you." I'm like, "No, it's fine. I'll just order a lift. It's fine. I'll just walk. It's fine."
mm,
And
mhm.
I've been like that most of my life. It takes a lot for me to accept help, and I am engaged, and part of being engaged is letting your partner actually be a partner to you
Right.
instead of
Oh.
doing everything. So that is what I am trying to let go of. I've been
Mm.
a single mom for most, like, pretty much my whole motherhood journey, and I've had lots of different conflicts with accepting help because sometimes help came with strings.
Yeah.
So I struggled with it for a long time, but now I'm really stepping into, like, it's okay for me to not hustle all of the time. It's okay for me to take a step back. It's okay to let myself lean on somebody else and give myself breathing room to decide what I want to do, where I want to go.
Okay, great. And really,
Yeah.
like, your business has been growing a lot, and it's like, well,
Hmm.
at some point or another, there's just no way you can grow, you can't
Yes.
do it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's especially learning different things where, like, I'm discovering I really, really love teaching, and I really want that to be like a stable, solid part of my business. Um, so it's like how I can't over get like I can't commit to so much in my business and still expect to be able to be present in my family life and my personal life. So I'm really, balancing those two things as
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
well.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're letting go of doing everything ourselves. And what would
Hmm.
you like to call in?
Oh gosh, I would like to call in, hmm, just like a sense of like ease and safety that I think comes with not feeling the pressure of doing everything.
Right.
So really letting myself relax and not worry about things constantly, not have a running list in my head of like, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. Oh, you forgot this. This is now late. That would be nice. So I'm really calling in just like being able to be present, and my healthiest self by proxy.
Mhm. Yeah. And like
Hmm.
just being held, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, I think I've talked about on here that Shane is the
Hmm.
producer of this podcast. And it's
Yeah.
like glorious that there's a whole portion of this, a big portion of this that I don't do. And
Yeah.
that, like, that is cared for by my partner.
Yeah.
And it feels so good. Like you're able to
Yeah.
like you said, let go of the list. You're like, they're doing it. It's not
Hmm.
my job to make sure he does it. Nothing. Like
Hmm.
he will do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Which is like a
Yeah.
weird feeling, but also a nice feeling.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
allowing everybody to get to know you at that
Yeah.
level. And now, so I think a good place to start always is I like to, let's hear the story of how
Oh
you
gosh.
got into the work that you're doing now, the evolution
Mm.
of it, I'm sure a
Yeah.
spiritual awakening, all that sort of
Yeah.
thing. Wherever you feel
So
called to start.
so I truly think that my first big spiritual awakening, although I have always been very spiritual, I'm raised Catholic. I wouldn't say like strict Catholic in regards to I've always felt like I had to be like the perfect Catholic. I just had a very close, stable relationship with God and Jesus. I was just like, I never went through a phase where I didn't believe in them. When a lot of my friends were becoming atheists in middle school and high school, like, because they were just struggling with their belief.
Mhm.
That never happened for me. Um, and so I've always been felt God's presence. I have great parents who like they show that. But my first really big spiritual awakening that did start me challenging the way that I had a relationship with God and the intuitive, energetic, spiritual space was when I got pregnant.
Mhm.
So I got pregnant when I was a junior in college. It was January of 2017. was like the second semester syllabus week had happened, and I took a pregnancy test, and I was positive.
How old are
And
you at this point? Because we don't have the
I'm
junior
oh
talk up
sorry.
here.
Okay, I'm 21 years old.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I'm 21 years old. I'd literally only been in the States legally allowed to drink for 6 months at this point. So,
And when you're a
like,
junior, is that like second year?
that's
What
it's
is
the third year. So
third
you
year?
see,
Okay,
so freshman, sophomore, junior, senior.
got it.
Um, so yeah, so I was second. I was in the spring semester of my junior year, so that's the second semester, and took a pregnancy test at my boyfriend's fraternity house, and then cried on the fraternity house bathroom floor, and texted my best friend that I need her, and she immediately left class. And it's so funny. We were actually just talking about this a couple weeks ago. She immediately left class, which she never does because she is like, while I'm a little bit chaotic, she's very like, this is the line, this is very linear. Um, and she came and she picked me up off the bathroom floor, and we kind of game planned what our next thing was. I told my boyfriend, and he was like, F, like what?
Yeah.
um, and then it started this really, it was a really, really big moment for me, and it was really hard for me. A lot of people I talked to were like, "Oh, you were basically an adult." Like it was really hard for me because I grew up with also the narrative of like you don't want to be a single parent. Like that is the hardest thing you will ever have to do. And having kids essentially changes your life in the sense of nothing's about you anymore. You don't get to have dreams, you don't get to have fun. You are just now like, oh, it's another form of working. And so there was all of this kind of coming at me, especially because I felt that a lot of people had a lot of high hopes for me.
Mm.
So I had a learning disability growing up. I've had a medical disability. I was very, very involved in the students with disabilities, like throughout Pennsylvania. I did a lot of advocacy work. I mentored students. I taught families and students how to advocate for themselves in the public education system, and then in college and the workplace. And so there were all these people in my community who were like, "You're going to do big things. You're going to do big things." My freshman year, I interned for a state senator. Like I had this plan, this 10-year plan, and I was pretty much on that 10-year plan. I was in line to get a full ride for a master's degree in social work and my JD, so joint degree programs at a couple different really big schools. Um, and it just did not
God
it
had
just
other
did not go
plans.
that way.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly. And normally when I make a mistake, I can cover it up, or I can like pivot and like so that people don't really notice. I don't have to talk about it publicly. At this time, I I was the most emotionally constipated person that I knew. I did not like talking about how I actually felt. When I was angry,
Oh,
I would just kind of like cut people out of my life.
oh.
I didn't do conflict well at all. And I, one of the things I would always tell people is like, I'm not one of those emotional girls. Like, it's black and white. That's why I
Mm,
loved law. Law was black and white.
mhm.
Um, and I believed that my value was 100% in my ability to work hard and not be this emotional person, which was crazy because I've always been an emotional
I know.
person.
I'm like, when
Um,
you describe yourself, I'm like, what? You? That's
yeah,
surprising to me.
yeah. The only time that I would let myself be emotional is when I would drink. So I did drink in college, and it was like it was. I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this poor version of me. Um, so, but with being pregnant, that is not something you can hide from people. You can't just go through it and not tell people. You, as a woman, like everyone sees it. But most people outside of college, like in my home, whatever, did not know that I had a child until I posted my daughter a year later at my college graduation. It was on Mother's Day, and I was like, for my Mother's Day, I got a bachelor's degree in science, and like everyone was like, "You had a child," um, because
So
I
you
didn't tell
you
people.
stayed in school.
Yeah, I did. I had it was really great. My professors, and I really credit the school because I don't think if I went to a different, bigger school, this would have happened. My professors were like, "We're getting you out of here on time. Like, there's no reason that you shouldn't." I had a really good GPA. I was like top of my like a social work class, and they were great. They put things online, so I had Scarlet September of my senior year, so it was my fall semester, and it was like a couple weeks into it. Um, and it was so, yeah, and yeah, and then I went through postpartum and my internship, which was 40 hours after like having a newborn. And then I went to grad school afterwards. So I just kept going. I kind of was like, this isn't going to slow me down. It's fine. I'm going to prove everyone wrong, because I did have quite a few women in particular from my hometown who were like, oh, that's so disappointing. I had somebody who said, your parents must be so disappointed in you. I had somebody else who was like, I didn't think you were like that. You
Mhm.
had so much potential. And so it just kind of fueled my flames of like, I'm going to go and do whatever I want, and I'm going to be successful, and this is not going to set me back. And I had family that was very supportive of me. Um, but it really, I think, started to make me question like my relationship with God as it was, and see things in different ways. And I truly think I really started to tap into intuition a little bit more after becoming a mom.
Mhm.
Just because I think that being a mom is a very intuitive experience as it is. I mean, you literally become a living portal and my birthing a child into the world. And then a year and a half after I had my daughter, my partner, my boyfriend died. And he died by suicide, which was really hard and unexpected. He had had some mental health stuff, but he was in active treatment, and I didn't like nobody really knew. He didn't tell anyone, and that completely broke me. So if I was like running on empty anyway from getting pregnant and then going to grad school, and I was in grad school at this point and graduating and working and doing all this stuff, that completely like broke just all parts of me on the inside.
Yeah.
I remember being numb for really like a long time, at least until I moved to Michigan in January of 2020. So Brian died in the end of May 2019. And then I decided I was just going to get my MSW. I wasn't going to continue to get my JD. Um, we moved to Michigan. Sarah and I moved to Michigan in January 2020. Scarlett came a little bit later. And when we moved, I was still pretty like numb. Like I just wasn't allowing myself to feel anything. I took it, the death really personally, in regards to like, I'm a social worker. I should have seen the signs.
Mhm.
Why didn't I see these things? Why didn't he feel safe enough to tell me? There was a layer that it took me a couple years to work through of, why was I not safe enough to talk to? And is nobody safe with me? Am I not safe with me? And it really, that I didn't even realize it came through, but yeah, it was really, really hard. But I went to my first medium after he died. So
Mhm.
that's when I started to like open myself up to like readers and intuitives. Um, and at this point I had started following Nikki on
Mhm.
Instagram and a couple other people, and I was watching things and just kind of like very like curious. And her Monday readings like is like the first place where I allowed myself to kind of dip my toes into receiving. And when I saw it was, who was it? I think her name's Candace. I forget her last name, but she did like a group mediumship reading,
Mhm.
and I did it. She said like, we I don't guarantee anyone will come through for you, like for everyone who joins. But I just was like, no, I like, and I kind of like sent a little prayer up. I was like, listen, Brian, you left me with this child. I want
I'm
some
sure.
answers.
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
and it came like, the reading was very like accurate. It made a lot of sense to me. Um, and and I think it gave me a little bit of peace. And then, gosh, I don't think anything like really changed energetically for me, or like how I got to where I got to, until I had my first reading with Nikki in, gosh, 20, I think it was 20, like January 2021. I was dating somebody new. He gave it to me as a birthday present, or no, a Christmas present. Because at the time, like, I was struggling financially. Did not know what I was doing. And I could not. I was wanted to save for one, and he was just like, I got it, and it was very, very nice. It was one of my favorite gifts to this day. And that really changed everything for me, because I had never felt seen in therapy. Like, I'd been working with different
Mhm.
therapists, I'd been in therapy. My mom shoved me in therapy 2 weeks after Brian died, and I just had never found a therapist that I felt seen or safe with. and I didn't have to talk about the trauma for Nikki to like pick up on it and tell me, and like all these things were all of a sudden making sense and clicking, and I was like, I left feeling like, oh, I can breathe a little bit easier. There's a little bit of
Mm.
a light at the end of the tunnel. It's safe for me to let people see me. And it really, yeah, it just that then I was like, I want to understand, I want to know why, I want to know how. And I started taking her mini classes, as well as like consuming all of the different information that I possibly could. And without the intention of adding it professionally. I do this thing where I'm like, no, I won't do that. I would never do that. Even
This is for
becoming
a
a
hobby. This is for,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
exactly. Because
Same,
even
I did
for
that.
therapy,
Yeah.
yes, when I was in social work in undergrad, I was like, I would never become a therapist. Like that's just too
Mm.
much for me. And when I started learning the stuff for Nikki, it was like, this is just for me and Scarlett. Like I would never add this into my practice. I would never be a reader. I would never like do this for other people outside of like friends or maybe like a party trick. And then I just kept learning and learning and learning. And then it was summer of 2022, and I had gotten back from Greece with my sister. I took my sister to Greece, and Greece was like another spiritual awakening. I actually sat on this like mountain by this active volcano and meditated and connected with the volcano and had all these downloads. Like I was just writing all this stuff down, and I really was like, ah, oh, this like feels so accurate, and I don't even know where to share this or who to share this with. Um, and I think I created like a little side Instagram to like share some of my intuitive stuff because I didn't want to tell people. And then I randomly decided to join Soul Teacher because it was Soul Teacher at the time, the very like last day that it was open. And
Mm.
I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to make this work. Like, I emailed Nikki. I was like, hey, I feel this pull. If this is something that is like possible, open to, like, please let me know. And she was like, yeah. And so then I joined, and it just, it changed everything. It changed how I understood the work I was doing. It made sense as to the different things that I had started challenging about the system. I'd become a therapist in 2020 when I moved to Michigan and everything. And um, I had already created some things that were thinking outside of the box, but it was really, really helping my clients. Most of my clients didn't need like a full year with me because we got the stuff we met their goals sooner, and some of the clinics I worked for did not like that because it was
Mm.
bad for the business model. And so I knew I didn't want to work for other people forever. I was like, this is not going to work.
Mm-mm.
And then after Soul Teacher was over, because even when I was going through Soul Teacher, I was giving other people readings, and they were like, "You don't plan to do this?" And I was like, "No, no, I just think like I don't think I'm any better than anyone else. Like this." um, and I remember it was at least like five different people in our cohort were like, you have to do something with this. Like,
Mm.
you have to do something with this. And I wasn't really sure. I thought that I had to keep, therapy separate than intuitive stuff, even though it was already coming up with what I was doing with clients. And just over time of practicing and starting to slowly integrate it with people and sitting with my spirit guides and sitting with myself, I understood how they were going to blend together, because the intuitive side helps us get understand mental illness on a whole new deeper level. And when you understand it from that level, it doesn't feel like this big scary mysterious monster that just is put on you. It's like, oh,
Mm.
I understand why I'm experiencing this symptom and this pattern or this behavior, and I understand what I need to do to get to the other side of it. It's not just as simple as like, I just need to talk about it, or I
Yeah.
just need to try to think differently. It actually starts at the energetic level, then goes to the nervous system, and then you can change the cognitive level. And I created the intuitive therapy method because I was like, you shouldn't need longer than 12 weeks to work with somebody
Mm.
if you're doing it weekly to reach your goals. And that's really what was happening. Um, and yeah, and just like over time of just practicing, doing it with people, building my own confidence in the fact that like, okay, we're going to trust that we created this and it's good content.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then and it has not been an easy road because it's been very like up and down, especially financially and having a child to provide for. And I've worked like odd side jobs here and there. I'd have like a side business of baking that would help bring in money. And
Mhm.
um but just continuing to share my gift and share it from a heart space has really been helpful. And and just community, like talking to people, connecting with people, letting them experience the work, because I still kind of struggle to explain what it is and how it
Mhm.
can help you. But I just know I'm like, listen, once you experience it, you will never want to go back to regular talk therapy. Like it's just, it changes everything. Once you get a reading, it like changes the whole way that you look at life. Even if you just get a reading and you don't, do work with me further. And yeah, I think that's kind of how I got to this place. I had lots of spiritual awakenings throughout this process. I was dating somebody else who's not Dan for a
Yes,
while.
I remember.
And so, yeah, and soul teacher is when I was like, oh, I can't stay with him. Like I can't be with him. And that was really hard, but it was just starting to you I think the big thing that people miss is that it's hard for magic to come in if you're not willing to trust it, by like physically. So like it's one thing to say, "Oh, I see the vision and yes, this is what I want. I trust it to come in," but then your actions show that you don't. So, taking action even when it scares the living crap out of you, and just, I guess, surrendering, which I know you talk about all the time, and it's hard. So,
It's hard, yeah.
yeah.
And also like the things that you have to let go of
Hmm.
for this magic or this more aligned life. Like it just doesn't all get to come with you always, it just
Yeah.
and that
Yeah,
ex-person being
absolutely.
an example of that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
a lot got me here. That was a
Yeah.
really long
Right.
story.
Of course, of course. Of course a lot got you there. And I think too, like I've watched your arc since Soul Teacher, and
Hmm.
just the development of your craft and it like weaving its way into its sweet spot. And I really feel like it's in its sweet spot. And it's interesting you say to me, like, it's hard to describe to people what I do. And I'm like, I feel like intuitive therapy is so clear. Like therapy, we all know now what therapy is. And then, like
Yes.
you said, that stat you gave that 85% of people are looking for a more spiritual approach to it. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, that's what
Yeah.
that's what we all want. That's
Yes.
why we're hiring
Yeah.
coaches and stuff like that. And there are so many people that are so much more comfortable when it comes to mental health stuff or whatever it is to
Hmm.
talk to a licensed therapist. So
Yeah.
it's like a really it's a valuable thing to also have with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, because you have the educational training of like, I mean, like I'm trained in like trauma focused care. Like there's different things that scientifically, psychologically, that now you can blend in with the intuitive stuff. Because just being in the intuitive space or just like doing things on an intuitive level can sometimes it's hard to ground it if you don't have like practical steps for things.
Right. Right. Well, that's a very
Hmm.
good point. Right.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk when you were talking about how mental health stuff will like I think you said starts at the energetic and then nervous system and
Hmm.
then cognitive. This is very interesting. And I would love to I don't know if this is true, so tell me if this is true, but like
Hmm.
think something like I know you do a lot of work with anxiety,
Hmm.
something like anxiety or seasonal depression or whatever that.
Hmm.
Do you see like a common energetic starting point symptom that leads to that?
Yeah, so all of these, for the most part, most conditions start with something that is like digestible, like a symptom that's kind of like, so for anxiety, it doesn't start with panic attacks and racing thoughts and heartbeat that's going really fast. It starts with a slight change of your behavior of like, oh, I experienced this thing. I'm just gonna do this instead. So I always use this random example of like, let's say you were a child and you went to school and you wore a purple zebra cowboy hat to school and nobody else was wearing it and you got made fun of and teased. You then the next day you had the option to put it back on. You choose not to, not because you don't love the hat or it doesn't make you feel good, but because you're trying to protect yourself from that situation happening again. You've now created some type of an energetic wound. Like there's an energetic wound where you could not be your full authentic self because you're trying to survive the environment you're in. And what anxiety does is anxiety comes along as actually kind of like a solution to be like, hey, we see that you experience this hard thing and you don't have the resources, the time, the understanding to process it and let it go and still kind of be yourself, but more of an evolved version of you. So we're going to come in, we're going to give you the survival skills
Mm,
and then buy you time to come back and process it later. So
mm,
anxiety actually comes online when there is something in our environment, or our life that is preventing us from feeling safe enough to be our authentic selves
Mm.
in whatever way that is. So it starts with like slight behavior changes that maybe you don't think anything of. Maybe we might even think of it as like, well, we learned a lesson and now we're just adapting to the environment. But that same behavior, so using that example of I'm going to not do this anymore because I don't want to be made fun of and I want to be socially accepted, down the line becomes this subconscious belief that I have to be aware of what the trends are. I have to be hyper focused on what everyone else is doing and saying, and then I'll tailor myself. So that's kind of like a foundational wound for people who have the pleaser anxiety language type, which has a core fear of abandonment. They really, really associate their social survival to life survival. And so it becomes this people pleasing, it becomes this obsession with what's the external world to determine the decisions that I make. A lot of times people might feel like indecisive, or they need to know what is everyone else wearing before I decide what I'm wearing or before I'm doing X, Y, and Z. So that's just an example of how something that maybe we would consider to be minuscule, like we might not even remember it when we're 27, 30, 40 years old, but energetically that wound is still there. So we keep behaving and existing based off of that, because everything is built from the energetic level. If you think of it like a pyramid, the base is energy, and then it informs like our body, and our body is our biggest intuitive tool. So it's also our body's interpreting energy from the external world. The mind for the body and our like energetic level. So if we have this energetic wound and we have maybe it's a cord, or maybe it's just like a belief that we've formulated from an experience, our mind is going to translate that into a narrative and then a behavior and a piece of the ego. So really, it can be anything. Like I know people have probably talked about trauma does not have to be these really big cataclysmic experiences. They can be something small, like kids teasing you because you wanted to wear a purple zebra cowboy hat.
Totally.
It essentially just means anything that taught you to not be, to stray from the authentic version of you. And a lot of times when we're older, when we need those pieces in order to feel satisfied and fulfilled in life. So now it's becoming a symptom. And also when we've been living out of that inauthentic place, that anxiety isn't meant to be lived out of. It's meant to just kind of give us some time, kind of be a little bit of a shield. But when we've been living out of it for so long, it starts to burn out our body. It starts to burn out our energy. It gets really hard to fill our cup because it's not actually filling our cup. It's just being a survival strategy. Hopefully this is making sense.
Yeah, I
And
have
did I
so many
answer? Okay.
questions. Okay.
Okay.
The first question that came to me was like, okay, well, there's got to be a better way.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that's what you help people with. But,
Mhm.
like, let's say you're experiencing the thing that causes the wound. I mean, you have a daughter, so you're probably
Mhm.
seeing these things happen.
Mhm.
Experiencing the
Mhm.
thing that causes the energetic wound. What is
Mhm.
where can she stop that from causing the energetic wound? Or can you not?
Yeah.
That's just
So
how it's
for
going to be.
some things, it's going to be hard to do that, because I have found that sometimes our soul needs to go through that and needs to like almost like let it go for a period of our life, especially to preserve it, and then we get to discover it again.
Right.
Um, but as a parent, I do see some of these things happening, and one of my biggest things is empowering her, but also giving her a space and giving her strategies to kind of like shake it off, so to speak. Like we sit with it, we allow the emotions to come up, and then we like I challenge her to think about like, well, would you rather be this version of you or this other version of you, and why? And like we kind of just like talk it out. My daughter is also very mature for a 7-year old, so we're able to have some of these conversations. But when she wasn't, when she was 5 or when she was 4, I did a lot of nervous system work with her so that it didn't become a wound that her body was carrying. And I took care of the energetic work. So I would cut cords for her, and then have her do whatever it is that she needed to do. A lot of times it's dancing. We do dance parties, and then we move on from there. And it's not going to mean that she's not going to have hardships, she's not going to have things that are going to stick with her energetically, but it at least gives her the best leg up to feel empowered and be herself when she's walking into a room.
Okay. And so, do we always pick up mental illness from childhood, from an energetic wound from childhood?
No, not always. So a lot of it's really interesting. A lot of mental illnesses are also generationally passed down. So depression's a good example of this. So first of all, statistically, we know that depression is most common in women than it is in men. And not that it's not in men, it just also expresses itself a little bit differently. But we see a majority of the diagnoses are women. And one of the things for that, one of the reasons for that energetically is that depression is a condition that occurs when something in our environment is makes our brain think, oh, a piece of me, a part of me is a threat to my physical survival. So I have to disassociate from it. I have to, especially when it comes to not processing anger. So when we have to really disassociate from anger, depression is the survival strategy that comes up because it's like a numbing. Um, and what frequently happens is it's a survival strategy that's passed down along genes. That's why we'll see, like, if your mom had clinical depression, you're more likely to have it. It's turned on whenever a certain survival strategy needs to be triggered to survive. So, and if you think about it, women for generations and generations did not have a voice, did not have the ability to do things independently, to have the emotions that they wanted to have, or to feel safe in their environments. And so that's something that is a condition that is passed down from your ancestors to where you are now. And I found that generational wounds, with each generation that they're passed down and not processed, it intensifies in some type of symptom. Um, so, yeah, it doesn't always have to be from childhood, it can be ancestrally. A lot of the kids that I've seen, it's not even that it's from this lifetime, it can be past lifetimes. So when we're young, we're actually working through and processing a lot of past life stuff up until the age of about 21. So that comes up a lot. It can also just be like you being courted to your parents. So biologically, we are courted to our parents, or energetically, for the first like 16 years of our life, because we need to be able to know if our caregivers are stressed or anxious. We need to know, because long ago you that would bring your awareness as well, to tell you if there's danger or a threat. But
Right.
now our parents are, it's not that it's life threatening, but they're stressed about bills, they're stressed about this, they're fighting. And so our kids pick that up, and it teaches their bodies how to exist, and then they carry it. Like, if they don't know, especially when as parents we say everything's fine, nothing's wrong, but energetically they're picking up that something is wrong,
Mhm.
then that's where we see a lot of ADHD symptoms. They can't focus on anything because they're so busy trying to find the threat that their body and their energy is detecting.
Mhm.
And their mind is translating of like, well, we can't focus. We'll just try to take everything on. Like, that's not a threat. So we're not going to focus on that. That, like, so it's very, a lot of the conditions, it doesn't just have to be from your experience. It can be what you are picking up from others, your connection to other people. There's so many different ways that,
Mhm.
things can happen. It could be a malfunctioning superpower, which are one of my like favorite things to talk
Ooh,
about.
what's that? Can you give me an example of
Yeah.
that?
So, okay, so there's one really big one. So I talked about ADHD symptoms. A lot of ADHD, I would say a majority of it, is misdiagnosed anxiety.
Hmm.
Um, but when you actually have ADHD, it's a malfunctioning superpower, energetically speaking. So what this is, malfunctioning superpowers are illnesses that, when Earth held tangible magic, they were not illnesses, they were these gifts. And ADHD was one where you were essentially a builder of the Earth. So you could take a concept or an idea or an energy and immediately like manifest like that. Like, and so you were moving very, very fast. But now that Earth doesn't hold tangible magic, what happens is that your energy is still moving that fast. It's like, it's essentially trying to manifest these things, but our body is much slower than it was at these other times in Earth's history. And so your body is not able to move that quickly. So it's just that your energy, your mind is bopping around. And so it takes a lot of like grounding skills. It takes a lot of learning how to work with that energy, learning to teach it to hold, like hold things instead of just like this and then this and then this, to be able to operate and like really not feel so like your body and your mind are working against each other all of the time.
Yeah. Wow. I think that was a really perfect description of what I've seen.
Yeah.
Um, wow. Okay. And then I feel called to ask a little bit more about
Mhm.
depression because it's
Okay.
been coming up in my field, in my clients, in
Mm,
my community.
mm, yeah.
Any questions that someone might want to ask themselves to get to the energetic root?
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple different ways that energetically depression comes up. So first, is it that it's coming up from a place of like anxiety first? So one of the anxiety languages is the number, and that can very much mimic depression symptoms. So with the number, there is again like something in your ego brain and your soul self is like butting heads. And so there's a numbing that happens. It's a lot of times where we see like obsessive behavior with things where like they go through these periods like I'm obsessed with this for a couple months, now it's this, now it's this. They're trying to find the thing that fills that hole, or that feels, they might use words like I don't feel satisfied, I don't feel fulfilled, like I don't feel happy. But it's just that they're trying to make this thing, this external thing, a part of them to fill that piece of them that they are trying to distance themselves from because it's not safe to feel that. So ask yourself, like, okay, if I sit with, and if for, I don't know if everyone here is doing energetic practices, but you can literally sit with your depression and just kind of like follow a little thread of like, where is it bringing you back to? Is it bringing you back to this place of like anxiousness, I can't be myself? Or is it bringing you back to like a mother or grandmother? And that's how you can kind of start to see, is it from this lifetime experiences? Is it generational? I would say if you are somebody who has experienced trauma, you're more likely to experience depressive symptoms. And so to really like sit with, okay, if I know I experienced this thing, what about myself feels, if I'm honest with myself, feels like it could be a threat. So I have to like numb it out.
Hmm.
Also, something to look at is depression, and this isn't talked about a lot. Depression expresses itself in two ways. There's the hyper symptoms and the hypo symptoms, otherwise known as like manic, or like the actual what we consider, what people think of when they think of depression. The manic is you go go go. You're like a workhorse. You are like obsessed with your dreams, your goals. You are like, oh, I don't need a full night's sleep. I just want to get this thing done. Um, while the hypo is like, oh, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to get out of bed. And so it's important to know which one that you fall under, because that's going to tell you a lot about your survival strategy, and that's going to tell you a lot about, if you experience the hyper symptoms, the go go go, the manic, you don't want to be doing like exercises or things that are keeping you fast paced and are keeping you busy. You actually want to do things that slow you down, even though you will not like it.
No,
Your
I
body
was
will
like,
feel very
you
uncomfortable.
hear
You will
those
hate it.
things going, mm-mm, no, I don't want
Yeah.
to be quiet and alone with myself.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then if you are in the hypo, the slow, the like yoga, the
Mhm.
almost I know a lot of people who have been like, "Oh, just like take it easy." No, you want to be getting things that like bring up your heart rate, that like get you in your body, that get you moving a little bit quicker. Um and then the other thing I would ask is, how do you feel when you are in community or in connection with other people? Because one of the big things about depression on an energetic level is not only when you disconnect from yourself, in a way you're also disconnecting from other people. So if you're like wondering, okay, am I experiencing depression, I would also ask how you feel with other people, and that's also going to give you a little bit of insight as to where the wounds are. Because if you're like, actually I don't feel comfortable with other people, I feel like they're always judging me, or I feel like, so maybe you're like in a group and you're like, they don't understand me because of X, Y, and Z. That's going to help give you little breadcrumbs as to where some of these wounds are and what these belief systems are. And whatever belief systems you find, they're going to have an energetic root. They're always going to have an energetic root, and they're always going to be sitting somewhere in your nervous system. And I think a lot of people get that confused, where they're like, oh, I just have this belief system, so I just have to do, you know, the thoughts, or I have to do affirmations. No, if there's a belief in there, it is somewhere in your body as well, and there is some type of energetic cord as well.
Interesting. Okay. And so
Mm-hmm.
then the only way for, I mean, especially for folks who like don't have an energetic practice of their own,
Mm-hmm.
the only way is to seek like energetic support, energetic healing,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, to truly see a full picture of it, you can always, because I tell my students this too, just start asking questions. Get real curious about it. Almost like, you're already kind of dissociating from whatever emotions you need to process, but like look at it like a detective. Like, well, why do I have this belief? Where does it come from? Does it feel like me? Does it feel like somebody else? Just ask lots and lots of questions, and you can kind of get to similar answers. It might not be the full big picture, like as if you were going to sit down with an intuitive or whatever, but you can at least start to understand the base level. And then if you're working with a therapist or a coach, you can start talking that stuff out. But and then the energetic solutions, that is something you'll either have to learn or talk to, because a lot of times the energetic solutions are specific healings.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I know
One
that was
last
a lot.
question about
Yeah.
mental illness, and that
Mm-hmm.
is like, what do you think it's here for?
Hmm. You know, I really think that it's something that is meant to help us feel really, really deeply connected to God. And
Mm.
some people might be like, absolutely not. I hate being, I like hate my depression. I hate my anxiety. I think so much if we can boil down and boil back the layers of being human, so as on a soul level, we love scavenger hunts and we love like discovering things. And I truly think that if you have the right tools, mental illness, especially like anxiety and depression or ADHD, they're an opportunity to unlock a level of your gift, a level of yourself, and a connection with source that you wouldn't have before. Because really, for a lot of people, it's about stop focusing on the external and really looking inward and really looking at like, how can I be more of myself? How can I bring this piece into my life? What are the things that I need instead of the things that everyone tells me to? That's what I love about this work is even the treatment plans that people get from this is it's not based off of what the basic template. It's based off of what is coming up in their energy, what does their soul really want to do. It's really letting the soul lead. And I also think that another way that it helps us feel more connected is a lot of times we need connection to get through some of these mental illnesses. We need to connect with other people. Isolation is one of the biggest things that will bring up more, like, even if it's just self isolation. Even for myself, when I get in those modes where I'm like, I have to do everything myself, I'm like, I'm alone here. Like, nobody gets it. I am worse off. I'm feeling worse. I'm mentally not as great. I'm emotionally not as great. That is because we are made to connect with others. We're made to connect with others, ourselves, source. And I think that that's a really big way of doing that. Even the more debilitating mental illnesses they might require dependence on other people a little bit, like where we have to have caretakers and people that care for us. But that is such a deep way to connect with somebody else, to have to rely on somebody to help you when you are the most vulnerable.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
yeah, so I truly think that that is the basis of it. Even the malfunctioning superpowers, like Earth is so magical and there's so much in the world that is magical. I think we just use mental illness as like, we're saying this is weird, this is existing outside of society, but it's just, I think it's just a way to challenge the way that maybe civilization has been living, that's separate from source, that's separate from magic, from gifts, from all that kind of stuff.
Right. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like a call.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a call back to connection, a call back to
Mm-hmm.
going inward, all this. I mean, almost like the
Mm-hmm.
same way that like when we have physical things that happen in our body,
Mm-hmm.
disease, stuff like that,
Yeah.
and for a lot of people ends up being a call that connects them to God and themselves
Yeah.
in a whole new
And that
way.
they need to do some things differently, that
Yeah.
and they discover different parts of themselves. Mental illness is the same.
Mhm.
It yeah, absolutely. And I just think a reframe is good, especially for things like anxiety, where I'm like, oh, anxiety is actually a really big gift. It can teach us a lot about what's for us, what's not for us.
Oh gosh. I have about anxiety, but I'll put them aside for now and I will ask this is
That's okay.
a slightly different direction and it's more directed
Mm-hmm.
to those who like therapists, people who are like
Mm-hmm.
working to help others. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure there are a lot of them listening, and just wondering if you have anything to say to like, you know, help them integrate more of their spirituality or who they are into their
Mm.
work. Like they're probably feeling afraid to do so. Do you have any
Yeah. Oh gosh.
words of advice?
Start small. Don't push yourself to like, okay, I'm gonna, do. all of this all at once. And you know, I tell people all the time, even I tell my baby intuitives in my program, self-determination is the law that I like go by. So like, say you want to try this new healing, you want to try this new thing, and and your traditional talk therapy practice, ask your client, be like, hey, I learned this new thing, I would love to try it, I think it might be helpful, what do you think? And some are going to say no, some are going to be like, not my jam. But you'd be surprised at how many people are saying yes, and that gives you an opportunity to build confidence, to build trust in yourself and your gifts. And I know there's a lot of therapists out there who are like, well, you know, evidence based. Technically, a lot of these strategies are evidence based. Like meditations are mindfulness strategies, and visualizations are absolutely, like, those are all things that we normally use. So it's, you just have to see it in a different light. And I've seen that. I think that's a big thing with any time that you're bridging to industries, is take the information. Where is it similar? You know, visualizations are a synonym for a healing meditation, for like walking somebody through an energetic healing.
And
That's
like
all that is.
clairvoyance.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and, like, paying attention to one of the strategies for helping to prevent like panic attacks and calming somebody down is um, using the five senses. What do you, five things you see, four things that you hear. Those are all also ways to connect with somebody's intuitive abilities. So you'd be surprised if you really sit with it and you let go of fear. So much that's in the psychotherapy industry is a synonym for what we do as intuitive healers. Um, and start in your personal life, start with yourself, start with your kids, your friends, your family, and before you jump to adding it in with clients, it will really, really help.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think too, I want to add, because it came
Mm-hmm.
dropped into me while you're talking, is
Mm-hmm.
like just always remembering your intention. Like
Yeah.
your intention likely is to support someone, is to help someone.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Yeah.
think like we get so afraid, and then it's like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, you're not trying to like make a buck or like
Yeah.
become famous. You're just trying to help
Yeah.
them in a way that like feels really natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they'll be so much better off because of it. So trust yourself, trust where you're being led.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
All right. How can people work with you?
So you can get a reading from me. It's called Clarity Session. That is essentially, I always joke around, it's like 10 years of therapy in one session because it's very thorough. It's very
She gives
thorough.
a lot of
Um,
information.
I do.
You get a
I
lot.
try to. um, and then you can either work with me one on one for 12 weeks in my intuitive therapy bundle, or you can learn from me and in Soul Surgeon, which is my signature program. It is 6 months, 13 modules, so you have 2 weeks for each module, and I teach you literally all the intuitive skills. If you're a therapist and a coach, it's great for you. If you are not those things, it's also great because it's talking about the foundation. So I'm walking you through how to do an energy healing, how to read energy, how to learn different things from your guide so that you can add it into your life in whatever capacity. It's really to create your unique blueprint, and to change whatever area of your life you want to.
Mm.
So I would love for you to join me. The next cohort is opening. We start classes at the beginning of March. So doors are open right now. And other than that, you can follow me on Instagram so you can stay up to date on all the things, because I might be birthing a membership sometime in the next year. So,
Oh, I
yes.
bet you will. You move so
Yes.
fast. When you were describing Gemini,
Yes.
I wanted to say, like, you guys have no idea. This girl gets an idea. It goes like it's a full blown thing so quickly. Whereas like the rest of
Yes.
us are like, okay, well, I'll take 6 months to prepare this
I
course. You're like,
do.
it's
I
amazing.
do. I wrote I channeled a book in 7 days and published it 3 days later on Amazon. So I channeled a 200 page book, and yeah, and everyone's just like, that was what? I'm like, it was
Unreal.
fine.
Okay, just quickly back to Soul Surgeon for a second
Oh
because
yes. Hmm.
so Soul Surgeon is for both like therapists who want to like develop their intuition, but also just for like anyone who wants to develop their intuition.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
I yeah, I would say it's for anyone who works with people. I have like
Mhm.
stay-at-home moms, I have realtors, I have teachers, because the thing is, it's teaching you how to, when you can read energy and you can heal energy, you can apply it to anything. Maybe you want to clear your house because it feels like one area of your house is a little
Yeah.
um maybe your kiddo is acting up and you don't know what to do. You've tried all of the things from all the books that you've read. This gives you a direct way to kind of cut through the fat and understand what does your kiddo's soul need, how, and maybe you can do some healings for them, but you can also implement it over professionally. So it's, I'm really giving you all of the tools that you need to just develop intuitive skills and add more magic to your life without it having to be super complex and
Got it. Okay.
hard.
And is it self-paced or are you like actively?
I am actively, so there's live calls every other week. So the modules drop on Mondays, and then you have like that whole week, and then we meet on the following like Friday, and that way you can integrate. There's partner practices and group practices.
Mm.
There's also a WhatsApp community, so you can drop questions that you have. It's a really great time because you can ask personal questions or professional questions about anything that we're related to the work, or just like in general. I do a lot of like on the spot channeling in those spaces too.
Sure you do.
Yes. So yeah, so it's taught live so that way you have lots of support, because I know there's just, when you start to learn intuitive skills and intuitive gifts, there's all these changes and you start to see your life differently. So it's important to me that you guys have that support.
That's a good way of putting it. You start to see your life differently. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you really cannot plan for the path that will unfold, you know? As
Yeah.
teachers or as coaches or as mentors, we try our
Mm-hmm.
best because you got to put some
Mm-hmm.
structure in place. But
Yeah.
in the end, like what rolls out, like you have to allow it to roll out because that is exactly what it's meant to roll out.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's really cool seeing the students that are finishing up now, like all the different ways that they're implementing this stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I realized that I'm supposed to do this, this, this," and I'm like, "Yay, we love that for you. I know it's scary. You
Yay!
got this."
Amazing.
So, hmm,
Well, thank you so much for coming
you're
on,
welcome.
and
Thank you for
also
having me.
just thank you for doing great work in the world. Like I
Thank
can really
you.
see I can see what lies ahead for you, and I really
Thank
do
you.
think you are a pioneer in something that is
Thank
like a
you.
paradigm shift in this world that we need and that we
Thank
all
you.
want.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks
I
for leading the way.
thank you. I will continue to try to do so.
Yeah, girl. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Until next time. Bye.